Hey, what's up guys? So in this video I'm going to be trying to teach you some of the tips and tricks that I use to get more high kill games in Blackout. If you are new to the channel and you want to see more Blackout content in the future, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you want something new, drop a like on the video as it does mean a lot. Without further ado, let's get right into the gameplay. Now the first thing you should be doing if you're trying to get a high kill game is just to do a hot drop. Anywhere that has a name on it is usually pretty popular, and you can get a lot of kills right at the beginning of the match. Before landing, you always want to observe how many other people are landing with you, so you have a pretty general idea of how many people you may be facing. Now when I landed, I was able to tell that there was somebody in the room next to me, so I quickly grabbed the shotgun and got him out of the way. Now that he's taken care of, the most important thing to look for after a gun is armor. You always want to find armor right off the bat. It's one of the most important things you can have, and you're not going to be able to win without armor. Now you're going to notice that the whole time that I'm in here, I keep out either a shotgun or an SMG. That's because when you're in a close range area like this, you always want to make sure that you have a close range weapon handy, because you never know if somebody could have dead silence or skulker. They could sneak up at you at any minute, so you always want to be prepared for that as well.
Potential collapse detected. Advise relocation to indicated safe zone.
Once you find armor, you have a lot better chance of actually winning gunfights now. So what I usually do when I find armor is I just start listening for shots, listening for footsteps, and I push a majority of the people that I hear, because we're trying to get a high kill game. Once you find a good gun and you find good armor, you're going to want to start looking for equipment. The most important equipment would probably be concussion grenades, frag grenades, smoke bombs, grapples, and trophy systems. I do also pick up the barricade from time to time because you can get some pretty good plays off with those. But that's another important thing to getting a win, is having very good equipment throughout the entire game. Right about now I start hearing some footsteps over to my left, so I get the equipment that I may have to use ready, and I also stand still and just try to listen to get a more general idea of where the guy may be. Right around here I can tell by the sound of the guy's footsteps that he actually left the building and he went outside, so I quickly jump out the window and catch him while he's running away. And another very important thing to getting high kill wins is you're going to need to use a lot of good perks. Personally, my favorite perks are Dead Silence, Skulker, Consumer, and Mobility, in that order. I don't really pick up any of the other perks, I just don't find too much good use for them besides maybe Brawler in certain situations. Right about now I can tell that there's more than just one person around me, so I kind of bunker down a little bit so I can be a lot more quiet. And I just start to listen to the guy's footsteps that I can hear inside to see if he's getting closer to me or farther than me. Also, I'm cycling through my equipment to make sure that I'm using the right one, and also using my Skulker perk so I can move around a lot more silently. Just by walking around the corner, I noticed the guy that was originally shooting at me, he was just standing there, so I pushed him with the flashbang and I was able to get the kill pretty easily. I kind of pushed a little bit harder than I usually would because he was standing very still, and a lot of better players don't usually stand still, so you can kind of use that as a way to tell if somebody will be better or worse at the game. And as a reminder, if you're going for a high kill game, you need to be running towards the shots. So I heard somebody over at the cemetery, so the first thing I started doing after looting that guy was go straight towards the other pair of shots that I heard. As I was walking up, I noticed the guy was pretty distracted by killing zombies. It's very easy to push people while they're killing zombies because they're either shooting or all they hear is the zombies growling. So all I had to do was just kind of crouch walk up to him and throw a frag at him, and it worked pretty effectively. It was right about now when I noticed how far it actually was from the circle. That's another thing you need to pay attention to. Luckily I got lucky and I found a quad that was parked outside of the cemetery, but you really need to watch the circle and keep an eye on it to make sure you're always in the zone, because also more people are going to be in the zone than they are out of the zone. That brings me to another tip of mine. Never use vehicles unless you absolutely need to. I only use them if I need to get to the circle quicker, like if I'm going to take damage from the storm. That is the only time I'll ever use them. I won't drive around the circle looking for people to hit, because most of the time you're going to get mesh mined or someone's going to drop a shield right in front of you. So I avoid vehicles altogether, and that's a pretty good way to avoid getting killed. And for the sake of the video, I'm going to cut out the really long drop. My quad was actually very close to exploding, so I got out of it a little bit before the circle, but luckily I was hearing shots off into the distance. So what I did is I used my skulker perk so I can be a little more quiet around this area, and I just started to look for people and also listen for more shots. After looking around for a bit and also listening, I was able to tell that there was people fighting over here at these buildings, so I switched to my sensor dart so I could be able to see them on my mini-map, and there was 2 people over there. Also, you want to be very careful when you're at the edge of the storm, especially right after it starts closing, because there's a lot of people that tend to be in the storm running from it. So they might be popping out of the blue, which I noticed right there. Somebody was behind the fence, he popped out of the storm. This doesn't happen too often, in my solo games at least, but there was like 4 or 5 people all around the same areas, but we managed to get a couple of kills thanks to our sensor dart. We can observe that the people over there were just fighting, so we can assume that the people over there are very low in health. One of the guys just killed the other guy over there, and this guy ended up only being a one-shot because of it, and we were able to get level 3 armor, which is very helpful. Also, I'm sure everyone knows this already, but level 3 armor is the only armor that protects against headshots, so no matter how broke it is, you usually always want to pick it up, because you can get headshotted with level 3 on, and you will survive. After looting the bodies, I noticed that I'm pretty far away from the circle still, so the first thing I'm going to do is just start running to the circle again. As I'm running, I listen for footsteps or gunshots, and we go directly towards them if we hear any. For the sake of the video, I'm going to cut it out because the running was kind of a long portion of the video, so we're just going to cut it out. Another demonstrated tip that's happening right here is whenever I'm in an open field, I usually like to look around. You know, you want to keep your eyes peeled for anybody else that may be in the same field as you. I noticed that there was nobody with me, so I just kept going forward to the circle into the cluster of buildings, because usually there are people that will be camping here. I used my grapple to get to the top of the roof so I could see if anybody else was here with me, and I saw somebody across the street and he went prone, so it's pretty safe to say he knew I was there. So I pulled out my cluster grenade and was able to throw it all the way across the street. Most people can get away from cluster grenades, but luckily this guy wasn't too good, so he walked right into it, and we got a pretty easy kill right there. As I'm here, I'm jumping from roof to roof, keeping my high ground, listening for any footsteps or any small movements if anyone's camping in any of the bathrooms or closets around these buildings. You just always want to keep your ears and eyes peeled when you're in these types of areas, because tons of noobs love to camp in these areas. Once I get to the top of the building, I put my trophy system on the floor while I loot the guy's bag, because if anybody wants to throw a grenade up here while I'm looting him, my trophy system will protect me. If the guy that I killed had a trophy system on the roof while he was up here, he would have been perfectly fine because my cluster would have gotten destroyed by his trophy system. So that just shows the true importance of the trophy system and why you should always carry one. I noticed someone off in the distance over there in the storm, so I start to engage him, but things quickly get hectic. A little after I start shooting this guy, I start getting shot in the back with a shotgun. The guy has dead silence or skulker, that's why I wasn't able to hear him, but I quickly used my smoke grenade to block his view, and also he was luckily reloading, so he wasn't able to shoot me while we were in the alley. I get back to the top of the building and maintain my high ground. And I usually avoid being pushy when I know someone has dead silence or skulker, because they could literally be anywhere. The only type of perk that can really combat it is awareness. If you use awareness, anyone with dead silence or anyone with skulker will just sound like a normal walking person, but I didn't have one at the moment, so I didn't want to push the guy anymore. Knowing he has dead silence or skulker, I fall back a little bit because I'm not sure where exactly he's going to be because he's quiet. Also, as I'm standing here, I notice that I'm pretty far away from the storm, so instead of engaging the guy, I actually use my grapples to escape the situation because he has dead silence and he has a huge advantage on me because of it. Because he has such an advantage on me with his perks, I use my grapples to escape the situation. Another tip is, most people do know this one, but you can use your grapples underwater, and it is very helpful when you are trying to escape an engagement. As you are doing this though, you always want to make sure that you do not actually drown yourself. It does take 25 health per second, so you do want to make sure that you go up and get some air while you're running away.
Get to safety.
Now the first thing I do when I get out of the water, anywhere really this works, you always want to check the area to see if anybody else is around you. You want to listen for footsteps or gunshots or anything, and after I notice that no one else is around me, I go back to look to see if the guy is following me. I also toss down my trophy system right here to avoid getting frag grenaded or concussed or anything of that sort. I do notice that there is somebody under the bridge, but I'm not able to tell if it is the same person that had the dead silence or not. Another tip I have is avoid water altogether, only unless you have to go into it to escape a fight like I did earlier. But once you're in the water, it's pretty easy for someone to kill you because there's only really a few places that you can go when you're in the water. This is another strategy I like to use. I see that somebody was down there and he sees me, so I act like I'm running away and then turn around. And I was able to get the kill off of him because he thought I was running away from him. I think it's safe to say that he stood still because he was cycling through his equipment, so you gotta also learn how to do that pretty quickly so you're not standing still too long. Because the biggest reason I was able to get that kill so easily is because the guy was standing completely still. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have either Skulker, Dead Silence, or Consumer in the endgame. It is very important because the circle is so small, it is very easy for a lot of people to hear your footsteps around them. After looking around for a bit, I noticed that there was somebody on the rocks over there. He didn't see me, so I thought it was a pretty good idea to start shooting at him, which it was. We got a lot of damage on him, but he started to run away to hide. Knowing when that it is a lot harder for him to hear me because I have Skulker on, I pull out my submachine gun and I get a lot closer to him to push. He's also probably healing because I shot him up a lot. So I found him right there camping by the rock and I was able to melee him to death. And in the process of that, I saw that somebody was sniping at him from hijack, so I instantly got away from there and threw down a trophy system to protect me from any grenades. Notice how I'm staying to the top of the hill because I have high ground in the area that I'm in, and you never really want to give up the high ground because it's very important to win in gunfights.
Circle collapse imminent. Get to safety.
Another thing is, you have to have very good reaction time because without good reaction time, I wouldn't have been able to kill that guy that came up top me. I'm assuming he had dead silence, that's why I wasn't able to hear him walking up on me. That, or I didn't hear his footsteps because of all the gunshots that were going around. Remembering that my goal here is to get a high kill game, I get a little more pushy towards the end because I only have 12 kills and there's 7 people left. I know that there's a lot of people at hijack, but I want to make sure that there's no one behind me coming in from the storm that is closing. And also, now that the sniper earlier is distracted by other people at hijacked, I can go and loot the guy that I meleeed to death up here on the cliff without having to worry about getting sniped. After getting tired of waiting around for people to come to me, I started to push the guy that was in hijack. This is where grapples come in handy because the only other way to push hijack would have been to swim, and swimming is a huge noise maker. If I swam up to hijack, they would have been able to hear exactly which direction I was coming from, so if you have grapples, make sure to use them. Based off the sound, I noticed there was someone directly under me and he put his shield down so I won't be able to jump through there. And I also know that he ran through and down the stairs, but I put a mesh mine there in hopes that he might be dumb enough to walk into it, which sometimes people are. It's always good to try out things like that. And once I saw the hit marker for the mesh mine, I knew it was game over for him. And I still have to take into effect that his shield doesn't destroy instantly, so I didn't jump down to go loot his bag instantly because his shield was still there for a few seconds. But then I was able to jump down after it destroyed and loot his bag, and he had a lot of good loot for the endgame. Before leaving the boat, I used one of my sensor darts to make sure no one else was corner camping here. It probably would have been a little smarter to save it for the circle. I wasn't paying attention too much there. But it was no big deal. Nobody ended up being here, and I was able to get back to the circle in a timely fashion. To my surprise, right when I got onto the beach, I actually heard someone swimming in the water right behind me, so I got onto the boat to be above him because I didn't want to get into the water because I didn't know which way he was facing, and I just sort of waited for him to peek his head up for the noise, and I was able to get him pretty easily. I don't really understand why he was doing that. He was a pretty high level to be doing something that newbie, but you're always going to find bots in your lobbies. Noticing how small the circle is and that there's only 4 other people left, well now 2 other people left other than me, my main goal is to get to the highest ground possible that is inside of the circle to have a pretty big advantage on anyone below me. Also keeping in mind that I still have my trophy system and I'm going to set it up right where I'm going to camp because it will block any grenades that any enemies try to throw at me, because you will get tons of grenades thrown at you in the endgame, and I mean tons of grenades. It looks like this guy had the same idea as me, so I quickly popped him off while maintaining the high ground. Now that I know that there's only one other person other than me, I want to be extra cautious, and I don't want to spend too much time looting his bag, because it is very easy to get fragged or concussed and killed pretty easily while you're looting a bag, especially when there's only one other person. After putting my shield down for a little bit of extra cover, I start to look around the open fields to see if I can see him running around or anything like that, because the storm is closing now, so if he was back there, he would have to run towards me. After I noticed that he wasn't in any of the fields though, I start to look more into the crevices, and I notice him camping in a... To summarize the strategies I use to get high kill games, you just really have to follow your shots. You have to use a lot of perks like Dead Silence, Paranoia, and Skulker, and you also have to be not afraid to push. You have to push every engagement you find until you do get the win. And thank you for watching my video, and subscribe to keep up to date with more awesome Blackout content, and have a nice day.